My name is Kerry Vaughn Erickson. This is a show, it's about a year's worth of work. Figurative, a little bit of urban landscape work, mostly figures. As you can see, I've got this swimmer theme as a big part of what I do. I like painting the body, I like the connection to nature and water. And I'm trying a lot of different sort of techniques in these pieces. So there's everything from palette knife application happening to more traditional glazing techniques, like with this piece. This piece is painted on wood, on birch plywood, so I'm kind of allowing some of the grain of the wood to come through. So really, it's just a variety of different application techniques in different mediums. And just sort of playing with different perspectives of this, working with the figure, and I'm sort of inventing these backgrounds. So these figures are based on essentially images from the internet, where I'm just using the form, and then everything else kind of is just from the imagination. So yeah. This is a piece based on an old photograph. I've been collecting vintage photography for about 10 years, and sort of scanning the images and then reworking them and turning them into paintings and trying out some different techniques. This piece has this linear sort of thing is the priming underneath. So I gessoed the panel really heavily with coarse brush. And so, when I started to paint on top of that, the lines of the brush come through and sort of give it an interesting texture. So again, playing with technique here and some masking happening, with the tie and stuff. And yeah, so this is a urban landscape piece. This is the Galloping Goose Trail, which is just near Uptown Mall here, and just was struck by this curve of ridden by here many times, and just kind of like the sweeping curve of this part of the highway. Yeah, and I just wanted to do something that involves some motion, so trying something new there. Yeah, trying to create some atmosphere using a little bit of palette knife and a bit of glazing, kind of combining a few different techniques here. And so, back to the figures. This is a daughter of a friend, and this is sort of an imagined background again. I've got her in an almost sort of Tuscan landscape. I went to Italy a couple of years ago, and so I threw in some cypress trees and sort of Tuscan countryside. Just compositionally, I thought it needed something here, and it just gives the feeling of kind of this person maybe wanting to travel or get away from their environment, and yeah, it's kind of just a imagined story, I guess. Yeah. These pieces, this one here is also based on a old vintage photograph from a family album. And this is a friend of the family, and nobody really knows who he is exactly, but I just thought he looked like a real character with his bowler hat. And of course, in the original photograph, the sky was completely white, and he was holding this cigar, and so I thought I'd kind of play with that a little bit and have the smoke sort of turning into these clouds. And it gets a little kind of nod to Magritte, maybe in a way, just that really central composition with the figure staring directly at you. And yeah, I just had fun, sort of adding colors into it, and this one's sort of a glazing technique here over top of a acrylic underpainting. So this is another swimmer here. Again, another experimentation technically with some glazing and kind of very retro kind of look. So it's sort of inspired by these old photographs, but from a more contemporary source, the image. And this is a gentleman by the name of Wes Mackey, who is a musician who lives in Vancouver. and I met him at the Sylvia Hotel last year around Christmas time, and he's kind enough to let me take some shots of him, and he just really has this great look, great musician, really enjoyed the performance, and so I did some shots of him there and used those as reference for this picture. And just the color sort of represents, it's kind of, I guess, the vibe that I got from him musically. And this is this painting is it's a mannequin in a store window, and so I have these reoccurring themes that keep coming up, and so I've got the swimmers, and I've painted mannequins quite a few times. I'm really sort of interested in what's happening with the reflections off the glass, and so I think this mannequin was in an American Apparel store or something on Yates Street, and so I'm not sure exactly which building is being reflected here, but we're seeing the reflections, of the sky and some of the architecture there, and I just find that the shapes created by the reflections are really interesting, abstract geometric shapes, and so yeah, really a challenge to paint, and kind of interesting design-wise. And I guess that's it. I have a little nude over here. It's a friend of mine who posed last year for me, and yeah, it's just kind of a little study.